Well, folks, I'm gonna drink me a cold one here, and I'm gonna tell y'all a story happened back when I was a young man. And I'm gonna tell you like the old timer told me. This old man, he was uneducated. His syllables and his words wasn't all that great. But that old man could tell a story, and everything he told was true. Well, I was just a boy when I heard this story about old Joe and Bob. They was out there on the prairie, and they'd been up north and brought a load of cows up there and sold them. And they was on their way back to the ranch when they got hung up in a bad storm that was going on in that part of the county. Well, Joe looked at Bob and he says, you know, these old horses is getting kind of tired there, and we needs to find us some cover for the night. Well, old Bob, he just going right along with old Joe. He didn't care. He ready to get him some shut-eye himself. Well, I tell you, boy, Joe said, I think I see a light up there in the distance, up on that hill up there. Let's be down here in this valley all night long. We're going to get washed away, it looked like. So they rode a little further, and sure enough, there was a house sitting out there in the middle of nowhere. There's a big old barn sitting out there beside it, and old Joe said, well, you know, we get some permission to stay here tonight and maybe keep us from getting drowned out here in this flood that's fixing to come through. Bob said, okay, that suit him just fine. He couldn't swim anyway. Well, they went up there and got a little closer to the house and realized it's a pretty good old farmhouse there, big old two-story house, and sitting way up in the hills there. Old Bob said, I'll take the horses out there to the barn, and you make contact, see if we got permission to spend the night here. If not, just tell them we sleep on the porch or in the barn. It don't matter. We just need to get out of this storm. I said, Joe went on in the house there and knocked on the door. Yeah, thought he heard footsteps upstairs. Yeah, that was some footsteps, all right. I heard a lady singing up there. She just a singing up a storm. Yeah, Joe knocked on the door again, and about that time the door opened. And that door opened, it swung wide out across there, and you could see a big old room full of furniture. But on that furniture there was cobwebs. And you know, people living out there in that country, they be dust on furniture. But there was not a human print on that furniture that anybody could see. Just like nobody was living in this house. But Joe, he heard that woman singing. She was singing up there in one of them rooms. Yeah. About that time, Bob, he walked up on the porch. Joe, you get permission yet? Doggone, I don't know, Bob. They're just there's a woman singing up there, but I ain't seen her yet. Well, them horses is out in the barn. If she don't come down, we just sleep out there with them horses, and at least we'll be dry. Might be a little cold, but at least we'll be dry. Well, Joe, he hollers out, "Ma'am, I hear you singing up there. You okay?" Just kept on singing, and nobody said a word. Well, that's getting kind of spooky. So they turned to leave, and then Joe heard this pretty sweet voice say, "You boys come on in now and get in and out of that weather." Yes'm. We out here. We right here at the door. We gonna come on in. Do you mind if we just put up here for the night? We got our horses and we put them in your barn if that's okay. But we even sleep on the porch if that's what you want. We just trying to get warm and stay dry, if that's all right. She said, "Yeah, y'all come on in and make yourself at home. And I'll be down there directly." And then she went back to singing. Well, Joe, he looked at Bob and he said, "Well, she sounds like a pretty nice little old lady. Maybe she's just bashful and she won't come down here, but that's okay, because we got this big old room and you brought our saddles in here, so I just take my saddle over there and I make me a bed." So I throws down old Joe, he throws down his blanket and he props himself up on his saddle and he rolled him a cigarette. Yeah, he rolled him an old bull darn cigarette and sat there and smoked that cigarette and was talking to Bob. He said, "Bob, something mighty funny about this place. I just can't put my finger on it. But you know that furniture there should have some human marks on it where people sit down, as much dust as it is over there." Bob, he said, "Yes, sir, I believe so. I ain't too smart there, Joe, but I believe that there's some fishy going on here." "Well, it's none of our business there, Bob," Joe said. "I think I'm gonna get stressed out here and go to sleep for a while." Ooh, you hear that wind howling out there, and them coyotes, they howling. Seemed like something wasn't right out here in this nighttime. But old Joe, he drifted off to sleep. Hear that woman singing that song up there. She never did come down. So them boys, they just took their time, talked a little bit, and then they got sleepy and just kind of drifted off to sleep. Well, along about midnight, Joe, he woke up. That singing had stopped. And all of a sudden, this scream, this scream out of hell, this scream, blood-curdling scream, and just make the hair on your head stand up. Well, Joe got woke up out of a dead sleep with a woman screaming. Well, Joe, he didn't know what to do. Bob looked over there. He's white as a sheet. He said, "Joe, what's going on up there?" He said, "Lord, I know. Man," he said, "that woman, she's screaming. You reckon we need to go help her?" And about that time, Joe got up and started up the stairs. Had his pistol in his hand. "Ma'am, you okay? Ma'am?" Not a same word that was heard up there. No singing, no hollering, no more, no nothing. Old Joe, he just easing along up them steps, one at a time, trying to get up there to check on that poor lady. About that time, he heard a door open. He looked down there in the ceiling, and he saw a shadow coming toward him. Yeah, Joe, he levels that pistol, and he said, "Who is that up there?" And he sees it is this lady. She's walking down the stairs with a white dress on. A white wedding dress. Now, let me tell you. Well, Joe, he backs up, puts his pistol back in his holster, and sits back down against his saddle. And that lady, she's coming on down the stairs. She's holding a lantern. Well, about the time that she gets down to the bottom of the stairs, probably about 10 feet away from old Joe, she walks right toward him. And his eyes got big as saucers, and boy, his hair stood up on the back of his neck, and he saw this woman had her throat cut from ear to ear. Let me tell you now, she walked right past them boys, walked right by them, and then went right in the next room and vanished. So he looked over at Bob. He said, "Bob, do you see what I just see?" "I sure did, Joe. That's bad, man. She was cut up like nobody's business." "Yeah, but she had a wedding dress on, Bob. She had a white wedding dress. Now, who wears a white wedding dress unless they be wedding? You know, either they be wedding or they got mad and then it just didn't work out. You know, something bad happened in this house somewhere, sometime there, Bob." "Yes, sir." Then he heard that blood-curdling scream again. And all of a sudden, he jumps up. And that same lady, she come walking out across the top by the stairs there and starts down the stairs. Well, Joe, he stood up there and he looked at her and he looked back at Bob. He said, "Bob, I've seen a lot of stuff in my lifetime, but man, I'm telling you right now, I cannot go to sleep no more in this house. We got to get out of here." Bob said, "Well, you know, Joe, we got to find out what happened to that lady." "Yeah, I reckon you're right. Now, I don't know. Well, maybe, just maybe, when she come back down here, I'll ask her. She bound to be live 'cause she's walking." So Joe, he just standing there, and that lady walked right by him, and he said, "Ma'am, are you okay?" Her eyes were just as red as fire. Blood all over her face and neck. "Bob, she won't talk to me. Something ain't right with this lady. Ma'am, you okay?" She walked right by them boys. Walked right in that next room where she did a little while ago the same way and vanished. Well, Joe looked at Bob and he said, "Bob, I'm wide awake now. I got 6 shots in my pistol. So if something's up there and coming down here, next time that lady comes by us, I'm gonna grab her. And when I grab her, I'm gonna hold on and find out what's the matter with her." Bob said, "Yeah, I'm standing right here with you, Joe." About that time, he heard that blood-curdling scream again. Bob knew Joe wasn't no coward. So he looked at him and he says, Joe, that lady just walked up there on that balcony, and she's coming back down here, and she carrying that lantern. And I see that blood all over her dress. That pretty white wedding dress is bloody, bloody. Boys, let me tell you, Joe stood there and he stood his ground. And he said, ma'am, you need to tell us what's going on, because we'll help you if we can. Boy, she steps down them stairs and she starts walking by, and old Joe, he just reached out and grabbed that woman. He put his arms around her. Boys, let me tell you something. Joe told me this to be the fact. And he wasn't drinking when he told me. He said, oh, I'll never forget it. When I grabs that lady to stop her from walking by me the third time, she just passes right on through my hand like it was a whisper of smoke. Buddy, the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I grabs my saddle, and Bob, he's right behind me. And boy, we headed to the door. We jump on our horses. We didn't even have time to saddle them up. We just throwed them saddles on there and bailed up there on top of them and got out of there. That story happened to be fact. And I believe that old man that told that story was named Joe. And I believe his friend was named Bob that was with him. We just sit there staring into space. Son, that was me that night that grabbed that woman. I guess I was about 34 years old, full of piss and grin. I'm piss and vinegar. I'm telling you, I wasn't scared of a wildcat. But ever since that night, I had trouble sleeping. I can see that woman in that white wedding dress. And I wonder, sometimes my mind goes back to that house out there on that prairie where I heard that blood-curdling scream that night. I hear it in my dreams, and it's something I never forget. Well, this old boy told that story. Like I said, he was an old man. I believe he told the truth. I figure he did. Because when he told me that story, he said his name was Joe. And he had a best friend named Bob. But you know, you hear stories all your life about other things that went on, but as that old man told the story, he never bobbled. He told that story, and his eyes had tears in them. and it made the hair on my head stand straight up. Well, I hope you enjoyed this story. Name's Chuck McDonald, Henderson, Texas. And this is one of the Western stories that I learned when I was just a boy. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.